What's good, y'all? It's getting close to one of my favorite parts of the NBA season, and that is, of course, when trades are going down, rumors are starting to swirl. We've already had 2 trades so far this season. The first one was Thomas Bryant going to the Pacers. Not that big of a deal. Shout out Thomas Bryant. And then also recently we had Dennis Schroeder get traded to the Warriors. Definitely a bigger impact trade, and I'm excited to see what other impact trades happen. But one of the biggest rumors or reports that's been going around recently is the fact that the Miami Heat are open to listen to offers on Jimmy Butler. Obviously, Jimmy Butler is a All-NBA, All-Star level player, and it would be really interesting to see if the Heat finally move on from him and what they would get back in a trade, where he would go. And Jimmy does have a player option at the end of this year, so it makes negotiation a little bit harder to do. He did give out a list of teams that he would definitely be fine with playing, and that is, of course, the Dallas Mavericks, the Houston Rockets, the Golden State Warriors, and the Phoenix Suns. So in this video, I put on my GM cap, and I'm going to go over some mock trades that I made up to see where Jimmy Butler could potentially land and what the Miami Heat might be expecting back for him. I, of course, included all 4 of those teams and a special sleeper team that I think would be a pretty good fit for Jimmy, so make sure you stay the whole video to check that one out. But without further ado, let's get into the first mock trade. We're going to start off with the Dallas Mavericks trade. Of course, in this one, we have the Mavericks getting Jimmy Butler along with Kevin Love, and in return, the Miami Heat get back Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, Maxi Kleber, Dante Exum, Dwight Powell, a first-round pick this year, and a second-round pick this year. I wanted to start off with this one because I honestly think that the Dallas Mavericks is probably the least likely place that Jimmy Butler gets traded to out of that list of teams. I understand he's a Texas guy, and obviously Dallas is in Texas. That's another good reason why Houston's on this list, but I just don't really see it happening. As you guys see there, the Mavericks had to give up 2 real key rotational players. You know, Klay Thompson and PJ Washington are starters on this team. They close most nights. And then also Maxi Kleber, he's a situational guy. Same thing with Dwight Powell. He's been getting minutes this year. So they would really have to gut a big chunk of their roster to get Jimmy Butler on this team. And that's just kind of what it is, considering Jimmy Butler is making almost $60 million this season. It obviously, you have to get a lot of contracts to make that money match. To try to mitigate the loss, I did include Kevin Love in this trade, because if you're giving up PJ Washington, Maxi Kleber, Dwight Powell, all of these big bodies, just for some insurance, you want to have Kevin Love a part of this. In this hypothetical, I don't really know how much he would play for Dallas, but it is at least for that like injury assurance at the bare minimum. What I really do think that this trade does, though, is it opens up more space for Najee Marshall to play, because he has looked great this season for the Mavericks. He would probably slot into that starting lineup. That would give the Mavericks a starting lineup of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Jimmy Butler, Najee Marshall, and Daniel Gafford. That's an incredible starting 5. And then they would still have decent depth off the bench with Spencer Dinwiddie, Quentin Grimes, Jaden Hardy, Derek Lively, of course. So I really don't think that this is really like too terrible for the Mavs to do. I really just don't think they would give up Klay Thompson and PJ Washington, though. And I know the Miami Heat said that they would rather have ready-now players that can help them win games still if they do end up trading Jimmy Butler. So in this trade, I mean, that's exactly what they're getting. Klay Thompson and PJ Washington definitely can play for the Miami Heat, and they would be very good for them, both defensively and then also with the three-point shooting. PJ Washington's having a great season this year. Obviously, we know what Klay Thompson can do. I don't want to spend too much time on this one, though, because like I said, I do think it is the least likely out of all of these trades that I have made up today, but I still wanted to put it out there considering he had the Dallas Mavericks on his list. We're staying in Texas for this next trade, though, just moving over to Houston. Of course, the Houston Rockets get Jimmy Butler, and this time they're including Alec Burks in the deal, in exchange for Dylan Brooks, Cam Whitmore, Steven Adams, Jeff Green, a first-round pick this year, a top 10 protected first-round pick in 2027, and a 2026 second-round pick. Jimmy Butler to the Houston, I feel like has been like rumored a little bit, very slightly for the past few months now, and I do actually really like the fit of Jimmy Butler there in Houston. Obviously, they have their baseline of defense, playing hard, playing physical. A Miami Heat-esque culture is brewing down there in Houston, so I definitely think for that aspect, Jimmy Butler would be a perfect fit. But on top of that, what I think he could really help elevate the Houston Rockets with is their offense. We saw against the OKC Thunder in their elimination game in the NBA Cup, they really struggled with their offense. They don't really have a go-to solidified guy that in the clutch or in a stretch of, to break a run, they don't have anyone they can point to and say, yo, we need a bucket in this moment. Obviously, they have guys that are talented enough to do that, like Fred VanVleet can go off on any given game. Jalen Green can do the same. Alperen Sengun, but they don't have that one solidified guy they could point to take them home. Jimmy Butler could be that exactly to a T. I think Houston has enough complementary pieces where Jimmy Butler doesn't have to every night go out and give you a crazy performance, 25 points, near triple-double, hero ball that he was playing kind of against that last game against the Pistons. But he also is skilled enough and has the confidence, obviously, as we know, to be able to take over those games and close them out and help Houston kind of when they're in those lulls of offense. My one kind of drawback is that the Houston Rockets are one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the entire NBA. And obviously Jimmy Butler himself is not a very good three-point shooter. And in this trade, we would be trading away Dillon Brooks, who is one of the Houston Rockets' best three-point shooters. So that aspect of it, I don't really love. But when you look at just adding Jimmy Butler for the player he is to this team and kind of their needs besides three-point shooting, I think it's a pretty perfect fit. And I also really do like this trade package that the Miami Heat get back in this. Of course, they get Dillon Brooks. Like we mentioned, they want ready now winning players. Dillon Brooks is exactly that, and I think he would fit in perfectly down there in Miami with their culture. And then they also get veterans like Steven Adams and Jeff Green. I don't really know how much they would be playing, but at the bare minimum, they're expiring contracts that would give Miami some more flexibility. And then they kind of get the best of both worlds in this situation because they get the draft capital, 2 first-round picks, and a second-round pick. But then also they get a young player like Cam Whitmore, who's kind of just fallen off the rotation in Houston. He hasn't really played since the first month of the NBA season. But in his rookie year, we saw a lot of promise for him. Super athletic, to score first guy. And I just think a fresh start in Miami could be very beneficial for him. I think Eric Spoelstra can maybe get him to buy in defensively and use his athletic tools to the best of his abilities on that end of the court. And also he can help the offense out for Miami because that's been a little bit of a struggle besides Tyler Hero, who's having a great season. Next up, we have the same trade package of Jimmy Butler and Alec Burks heading over to the Phoenix Suns in exchange for Bradley Beal, a 2031 first-round pick, and a 2026 second-round pick from Denver. Now this trade, kind of like the Dallas trade, I don't really know how likely it is that this actually goes through. A big contingency on this is Bradley Beal has a no-trade clause in his contract. So that means if Miami and Phoenix both agree on this exact trade, it works perfectly, they still have to go to Bradley Beal and say, hey Bradley, you want to go to Miami? He could easily say no, and there's nothing they could do about it. And I do know that Bradley Beal was kind of linked to Miami before he got traded to Phoenix. I'm sure part of that is to play with Jimmy Butler, so I don't really know if he would accept the trade if he's going in exchange for Jimmy Butler. But, I mean, it is still Miami at the end of the day. Maybe he wants to go there. And when you're looking at it from Miami's perspective, obviously, like I've been saying, they want those ready-now players. And Bradley Beal, spoiler alert, is by far the best player involved in any of these deals. So if they still want to be competitive and still want to try to make the, a playoff push in the Eastern Conference, Bradley Beal definitely would be beneficial. I do kind of question the fit of Tyler Hero and Bradley Beal. They're kind of very similar players in my eyes, and they do a lot of the same things, especially since Tyler is having such a great season. I don't really know if I would want to bring in a guy like Bradley Beal that's going to take the ball out of his hands. But, like I said, still on paper the best player in any of these trades. And then when you look at it from Phoenix perspective, I mean, Jimmy Butler would definitely help them with their size. It would make them have a more natural fitting lineup together. Instead of having Devin Booker run the 3 at, 6'5", they would have a true 6'7" Jimmy Butler there. Defensively, he could help with their intensity and everything like that as well. He could help with them being a secondary playmaker next to Tyus Jones and Devin Booker. I do think, obviously, Jimmy Butler is a very talented player. He would fit in well alongside with everyone else in Phoenix. And then in this trade, too, they're also adding a slight bit of depth. I know Alec Burks hasn't really had a crazy season so far this year, but he is a guy that can give you buckets off the bench, so maybe he could do something like that in Phoenix. Next up, we have the Golden State Warriors, who, you guessed it, are getting Jimmy Butler in this trade. This time he's coming along with Josh Richardson, and the Warriors would be sending back Jonathan Kuminga, Andrew Wiggins, Kyle Anderson, Gary Payton II, a top 8 protected 2028 first-round pick, a 2026 second-round pick from the Atlanta Hawks, and a 2029 second-round pick. I don't want to call it just yet because we do have one more trade trade to go over, but this is one of my favorite packages that the Miami Heat are getting back in these mock trades. In a way, it's similar to the Houston Rockets package that I was talking about, where it's teetering the line where they're getting some play now players that help them in this moment, like an Andrew Wiggins, a Kyle Anderson, a Gary Payton II. All three of these guys have very intricate roles with the Golden State Warriors this season right now. And then they're also getting Jonathan Kuminga, who will help them right now, but also is a young player that they can help grow in the future. And there is a reason why I like this package so much, and that's because the Golden State Warriors are probably overpaying in this one. Just to make it work contractually, they need to include Andrew Wiggins, and he has been one of their best players on the roster this season. You know, it's like Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, and Draymond Green probably tied for like 2 right now. He's looking very similar to the season where he was an all-star starter and they won their championship. He's competing defensively at a super high level, knocking down the three-point ball and still finishing at the rim incredibly well also. So all of those things combined, you know, I don't know if the Warriors would really want to include him in this trade package. And when you're looking at it from the Warriors perspective, obviously Jimmy Butler is super talented, and on paper they are adding talent onto their roster. They are giving up 4 key contributing role players though in this trade. It's not often where you could do that and still say I have a very solid 10-man rotation though. The Warriors right now, they've been running like a 12 to 13-man rotation even some nights. So I do think they have the wiggle room to kind of make a consolidation trade and also still have a solid amount of depth. But at the same time, I don't really know how much I like the fit of Jimmy Butler. Like I said, player-wise, talent-wise, definitely upgrade. But fit-wise, I don't really like it because it doesn't address the Warriors' most glaring issue in my eyes, and that is, of course, their size. They are a super small team, and Jimmy Butler being 6'7", he's not really helping you with there. He can run 6'7" small forward. He would be, you know, about average at that size. But also in a lot of lineups, I could see the Warriors running him at power forward, and they would still be undersized. And then in those lineups where he is running like the 3, I would assume they would have Draymond out there, and then also another center like Kevon Looney or Trace Jackson Davis. Those 3 on the court together at once, recipe for disaster. I know you have Steph Curry, who has some of the big, not even some, I'm bugging right now, has the most three-point gravity in the history of basketball. I don't really know how much I would love to see it clogged up by Draymond, Jimmy Butler, and then whatever center they have on the roster. And last but not least, my sleeper team that is not on Jimmy Butler's list, it's the Memphis Grizzlies. And this package, of course, the Memphis Grizzlies are getting Jimmy Butler and Alec Burks. And in exchange, the Miami Heat are getting Marcus Smart, Santi Aldama, Luke Kennard, Brandon Clark, a 2025 first-round pick, a 2027 first-round pick, and a 2026 second-round pick from the Clippers. I definitely buried the lead here on this one. This is my favorite trade package and honestly favorite fit for Jimmy Butler. It is very unfortunate because it is the one team that I'm going over that he did not include on his list of teams he wanted to play for. But if the Grizzlies took a chance and maybe offered this package and Jimmy came over, they had some playoff success, you know, you never know. He could resign. It is a big risk, so I don't really know how likely it is. But I would absolutely love if this trade went down. I think Jimmy Butler would fit in perfectly with the Grizzlies' grittiness and their toughness, the physicality that they play with on both sides of the floor. I think Jimmy Butler is a perfect fit for that. He's obviously running alongside John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., who's having a great offensive season this year. So he wouldn't have to be having the ball in his hands so much. But obviously, we all know what he can do when he does have it. He can also run some lineups out there where he's the main facilitator and you know, kind of the main focal point of the offense. And I do think that this kind of scaled back offensive role could help him defensively and give him more energized minutes on that end of the court. The Grizzlies have just looked absolutely incredible this season so far, and I do think that's going to continue. And I just feel like they have so many assets and so many good players on their roster that a consolidation move is bound to happen at some point. I know a few seasons ago they were maybe looking to get Mikal Bridges on there, so I know it's on their mind to get this consolidation move down and to kind of level up their team. I do think Jimmy Butler could definitely do that for them. And then in the package that they're giving up, I do think it's contention for one of the best packages that the Miami Heat would get back. Marcus Smart, another guy that I think perfectly would seamlessly fit in down there in Miami. Another win now type of guy. Santi Aldama having a great season so far this year, but he is a free agent at the end of this year, and I know Memphis is kind of up in the air if they do want to extend him, how much it would be, this or that. So if they include him in this trade package, kind of wipes their hands of that and lets the Miami Heat have to worry about all that. And then Luke Kennard and Brandon Clark are two more guys that the Miami Heat definitely could help as rotational pieces. That's 4 guys that they would be able to bring in and definitely contribute for the Heat. That's exactly what they're asking for. Along on top of that, they're getting a decent amount of draft capital. And then similar to what I was saying with the Warriors, the Grizzlies have so many bodies on their roster that they still would be able to run out a very solid 10-man rotation, especially once guys like G.G. Jackson or Vince Williams come back. They will be set. They'll still be able to run out 10 guys that are high-quality NBA players. I don't know, though, because, like I said, this is the one team that is not on Jimmy Butler's list of the mocks that I went over. So as probably one of the most least likely things, but I am super excited to see what Memphis could do because, like I said, I definitely think that consolidation move is on its way. And then also, I'm super excited to see what Miami ends up doing, if they'll just keep him, if they trade him in the offseason. I don't really know. Let me know in the comments down below, though, which one of these trades was your favorite and which one you would want the Miami Heat to do. Where do you think Jimmy Butler would go? Let me know in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. In the description, there's links to all my social media, so make sure you follow me on all those to keep up to date with me. Catch y'all.